Warning: all views expressed in this video are from the creator and do not represent the opinions of any other company or individual. Content shown within is intended for entertainment purposes only, and no infringement is intended. Enjoy!
Hey there, this is Perch. So one of the questions that's come up a little bit is it's I think people have these thoughts. They read comics or they see comments on social media, and they do some little bit of convergence of ideas, some cross pollination of different topics, and they reach certain conclusions. So it's like, if the A is true and B is true, then A plus B equals C, and that's how life works. I think um, people draw conclusions about anything. That's what we do as human beings. We try and make sense of this crazy world that we live in. So we don't have all the answers. So we're trying to draw conclusions, and sometimes those conclusions make sense. Like back in the day, Fantastic Four as a title, seemed to be de-emphasized at Marvel. Now there's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of frankly outright lies about what really happened there, and I'm going to go through that in an upcoming video, just the history of Fantastic Four and what exactly took place with that property. But it seemed like Marvel was de-emphasizing the first family, and simultaneously, Fox is kind of fighting them over the rights, and they're putting out a movie that Marvel was definitely not behind, and they had involved a couple people. This is something that is discussed a little bit less, but they involved a couple people who had left Marvel or were not part of the creative council, and yeah, there was some bitterness over that property. And Ike Perlmutter is a guy who again, topic of yet another video, just going into him. It's people portrayed him as this kind of evil warlord who was going to say, fine, if you're not going to let me do what I want with Fantastic Four, then I'm just screw it. I'm going to just make the comics terrible and just deliberately get you. And so that's not accurate. Well, parts of it are. I mean, Perlmutter is a very interesting character, very secretive, and rumor has it a decent temper, but a lot of people's views on Perlmutter kind of reflect their political views. Perlmutter has, as part of the Trump administration, definitely more right leaning in a left leaning creative field. So a lot of the things that are said about Perlmutter are said under that lens of here's somebody I don't agree with, so therefore these other things may be true as well. This kind of that A plus B equals C kind of thing. You're drawing some conclusions based on his character that just may or may not be accurate, not accurate. But, that said, this guy's not going to win, charming man of the year either. Perlmutter is at kind of his core as a businessman. And so if you look at the Fantastic Four decision, then you can say, well, if Marvel doesn't have a strong and Disney doesn't have a strong, compelling reason to promote those characters, and we've got a finite amount of characters we can promote every month, it makes sense to promote the characters in the books that are ones that our corporate parent has more rights to and can do more things with. That's a very boring statement. It's not nearly as juicy of a headline on a clickbait site as Ike screws Fantastic Four to get revenge at Fox. It's nothing is so dramatic. It's purely Marvel can do things with Captain America, Disney can do things with Captain America. Marvel's going to put, if they're going to pick, let's see, do I pick character A that I have rights to, or do I pick character B who benefits another company? Hey, guess what? They're going to pick character A, and they did all the time. They did. So it's a business decision, but again, it's that idea of hey, I'm not seeing as many Fantastic Four titles on the shelves. Hey, I see that Fox is producing this very weird version of Fantastic Four that seems very different from what Marvel does, and therefore there must be some kind of Cold War going on between the companies. And business can be a Cold War, but it's really just business. At the end of the day, it's business. And what a lot of people kind of fail to recognize, and this is something that happens on the internet all the time, is that just because you like something, it doesn't mean it's a top seller. So Fantastic Four, sorry to say, it has not been a top seller in comic stores for a very, very long time. It did very nice when John Byrne was on top of it. It had a bit of a bump when Hickman was on it, but even there, they gave Hickman some pretty A-class talent, artistic talent, to work on it with him, and the title still was not a top seller. So to say that Marvel's deliberately sucking profits in a revenge scheme against Fox, it's like, well, yeah, not really. That's not really how things go. Um, because it's again, facts are facts and sales are sales, and Fantastic Four is not a top seller, so it is what it is. But these kinds of kind of logic games come up all the time with books, and you see this on social media in particular. People get one fact and then another fact, and they correlate the two to create some conclusion. And once that's happened, it's really, really difficult to get them off that conclusion. And it's certainly not helped when, again, I mentioned with Fantastic Four, you got a bunch of clickbait kind of news sites out there who are trying to fill content. They're trying to get that, that their 50 posts a day so they can get that sweet, sweet ad revenue going, and they can show, hey, we've got stuff. So the quality bar goes down on what's being written. The desire to capture people with misleading headlines goes up because that's what's going to make the monies. And there you go. So, you get that scenario going on, you get a couple of theories going on, and there you have it. And on top of all that, the publishers are not in the business and will never be in the business of going on dispelling every rumor. And a lot of the employees for said publishers are either they're not actually employees, they're contractors, which is the majority of comic creators is they're freelancers, or they're not under specific contract, not like we think of it in healthcare or in tech. They're more temporary than that, which means their job stability isn't necessarily the best. And it's not like you're getting paid $1 million an issue. So, job stability kind of matters. Networking matters. So you're not going to go out there and say things that may or may not conflict with what the publisher is doing, stick your neck out there, and then suddenly you've got some editors or some people at the publisher who are ticked at you. There in itself, you do have a lot of theories about kind of this iron grip of publishers who, if you say anything that falls out of line, you're going to be punished and you're not going to get work. And again, there is some truth to that, but it's a little bit more boring than you might think. And I'll put it to you this way: if you go get a job at McDonald's and you go in and there's the boss, and the boss has an assistant manager that's a friend of the boss, and you start disagreeing with the assistant manager. You start, you come in and the assistant manager loves this style of music, and you say, loud, I hate that style of music. And you kind of put yourself at odds with the assistant manager. Then, in terms of longevity to your career, yeah, you probably, when time for promotion comes up, or maybe the other way, times are tough and we got to cut one member of staff. Who are you going to cut? Are you going to cut the guy who flips burgers super fast, or are you going to cut the person who's always complaining about the music that is being played and people don't seem to like? You're going to go after that person. And I'm not saying that's fair, and that's often taken to some extremes. I think there are some very, very talented comic creators, writers, artists. In my view, on the internet, it's the artists, in particular, a couple artists that are really kind of the spotlights on. But if you really want to dig into it and you kind of swivel that spotlight over to people like John Byrne or Chris Claremont or some folks like that, I think there's a much bigger, much more, I don't want to use the word sinister, but a much more interesting case you can talk about with people who are kind of really long careers, really proven creators who have, for whatever reason, fallen out of favor with some of the people making kind of editorial creative talent decisions. And some of that is, there's some, politics, not politics like Republican Democrat politics, but politics in terms of kind of interoffice politics at play. Some of it is, you hire who you know. So this topic is kind of about people drawing conclusions, but it could very easily be about nepotism. And nepotism is something that, it sounds icky. It's certainly not a good thing. And big companies like, your AT&Ts or your Microsofts or your Amazons, they work really hard at the HR level to try and avoid nepotism from really taking root inside the company. And despite the fact that they work really hard at it, it still is there, plenty. And because it follows a very simple premise, and that is, you have somebody who's in charge. Maybe they got promoted into that role. Maybe they were hired. Who knows? That person is there. The person has people they've worked with in the past that they have liked, hopefully for good reasons, hopefully because those people are good producers and they do good work. But more often than not, it's somebody who you have a personality bond with, or, you've had your friend for 15 years. And so you try and do a solid by your friend. You try and bring your friend in. An opening comes up and it's, you're dealing between unknown person and your friend. You're going to put preference to a known entity is kind of that's the counter argument to nepotism. If you go into a company and they say, we're really against nepotism, but we really are in favor of hiring known entities. And known entities is just kind of code for, somebody we know, which is code for nepotism in a lot of ways. So HR departments and other things get set up to try and do, extensive interview loops. So that the person you're bringing in, even if they are a known entity, is not a schlub who is just being hired because of the relationship. There typically is somewhere tagged in the HR file that there's a connection there, so they can kind of watch out for some bias and other things coming up, and they try to at least legally protect themselves. Now, it obviously doesn't work in a lot of cases. I mean, I think you go into any big company and it's like, oh, that person's a friend of the boss, so they get the good promotions or they get the good assignments or whatever else. It's a tale as old as time, and it certainly exists in comics as well. And so you can look at it and go, this is not a good thing. And certainly if the quality of the work being produced is not a good thing, if the quality of the work is bad, it's not a good thing. But it's also a very normal thing. It's not exclusive to comics. This is not, a result of kind of an industry that's not being watched closely enough. And so they've let this nepotism creep in. No. So back to that kind of A plus B equals C. When you see a comic or you see a title and you're like, wow, why does this creator keep getting work? This is garbage. Well, they clearly must vote the same way as the editor or what have you. And that, it's not on merit, it's on, this relationship. And maybe, there is some of that goes on. There's other things like maybe that particular talent is willing to work for a certain page rate that is more favorable. Maybe it goes back to that known entity thing. Maybe it's, an assignment has come up and an editor hasn't necessarily done the best job of vetting a good talent pool. And so it's like, grab somebody for this quick comic that needs to be produced. And you go into your Rolodex and you've got 5 people there that that you've worked with in the past, and you grab one and there you go. And they are inserted. And that's how a lot of people get work, that maybe they're not the best talent. Maybe this isn't, if you did a worldwide talent search, you'd undoubtedly find some pretty amazing people, but they're not known. They're not known by the editors who are making these decisions. And the editors are not, let's see, how do I want to put this? There's not necessarily an incentive or / time. I had a very kind of intense argument with an editor 2 years ago, who's continued to raise through the ranks and is a name everybody would recognize at Marvel. And I said, my argument was, are the editors incentivized to go find new talent? Meaning, are they given raises or bonuses if they bring in talent that is really, really strong or new or fresh? How are these talent searches happening? Are they are you encouraged as an editor to go out there and really turn over every rock and look in new places, not just the places you know? And I said, you're not. From what I understand, you're not. And the editor got very heated in this conversation and say, no, I work really hard. I try and find new people. But he said, I don't have time. Time or money? Like, do you think that Marvel's going to just, pull up the private Marvel jet and fly me around the country to art schools and meetups and Comic Con and other things? Are they going to fly me around to go do this massive talent search? And my boss is going to say, hey, don't worry about your daily assignments. Just focus on this new talent and no problem. It's like, so his defense was kind of, look, they're not giving me the time to do this. My argument is there's no incentive to do it. Those two are actually kind of the same thing, at least in my head. I think, it's not bad editor. I think, if an editor's job is to get from point A to point B, and you can do that either with, bringing on somebody and you're done with the job and you get to go home and watch that Game of Thrones episode you've been wanting to watch, or you can take an extra, 20 hours. I mean, and 20 hours is a joke. I mean, days. You take days hunting for new talent, navigating the legal loopholes of seeing portfolios, and then, having to make sure you're not being influenced in some way, or, just, yeah, I mean, and by the way, is it part of an editor's job description to go out and seek out new talent? Not really. I mean, it's yes and no. It's kind of fuzzy. Honestly, that goes back to that incentive part. So, I mean, where you want to put the blame, you can put it in many different places. But the point is, I think when you're trying to get to the answer, to the bottom of a mystery, and figure out, why are things the way they are, you do, again, naturally, you're going to draw conclusions. You're going to take pieces of data and form an opinion on something. And that's fine. But I guess the caution I'd say is you really dig. I mean, really, really dig to get data out, to get all the data points. You have to stick your neck out there, and you have to be willing to listen to people who have very different opinions from you. Because one, you may learn something new. You may learn a new fact you didn't know that will influence your decision. Or two, I mean, hearing somebody's compelling argument against you can strengthen your own argument. It can make your view of things stronger. That's why, at least it used to be why we had political debates and other things, because people could view this and form a more robust opinion on things. But drawing conclusions quickly leaves you very vulnerable, because if you say, okay, I know fact A and I know fact B, so therefore it's got to be C, and that's what it is, and anybody else is wrong, and all the rest, you leave yourself very, very vulnerable to looking like a fool, because you don't have enough data. You jump too quickly to a conclusion, and you may have made a connection that is not really real. So, take it for what it's worth. I think there's always new things to learn, and that's kind of the point here. Anyway, well, thanks for listening. And if you want, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a buddy. Next time you're in that cocktail party with a bunch of other people, you just kind of slide the channel over so somebody can subscribe. If you like notifications, then hit the bell and you can get alerts when these videos get posted, and that will be a delight. The next time you're in a meeting and you're showing somebody your phone for this important spreadsheet or financial analysis, and up comes a little notification that I'm blabbing about something else, that will definitely be good for you. And follow me on Twitter, ask questions. Let me know what you want me to talk about. I'm here for you. So thanks a lot.